Introduction: The Power of Tiny Wins, a story of transformation. Imagine a man named James. For years, he struggled with his weight. Every New Year's Eve, he made the same resolution. This is the year I'll finally lose the weight and get healthy. And every year, he started strong. He went on extreme diets, cut out all sugar overnight, and forced himself to wake up at 5 a.m. for grueling workouts. But within weeks, exhaustion and frustration set in. One cheat meal turned into a cheat day. A missed workout turned into a week off. The cycle repeated, motivation faded, and he ended up exactly where he started. Then one day, James tried something different. He didn't commit to an extreme diet. He didn't sign up for a brutal exercise program. Instead, he focused on just one small change. He started by drinking one extra glass of water every morning. That was it, just one tiny habit. A week later, he added a 5-minute walk after dinner. Nothing intense, just a stroll. The week after that, he swapped soda for sparkling water. Slowly, these small changes started stacking up. A month in, he noticed he had more energy. 2 months in, his clothes fit differently. A year later, James had lost over 50 pounds. But more importantly, he had built habits that were sustainable. What changed? The secret wasn't willpower or motivation. It was the power of tiny, consistent wins. The big idea: why big changes fail and small wins succeed. There's a reason why crash diets, extreme workout plans, and overnight success schemes don't work. The human brain resists drastic change. We are wired to seek comfort and avoid anything that feels like a threat to our stability. That's why sudden, massive lifestyle overhauls often lead to burnout. But small changes? They slip under the radar. They don't trigger resistance. They feel easy, and that's their magic. When something feels easy, we're more likely to stick with it. Imagine the difference between two scenarios. 1. You decide to read 50 books this year, so you force yourself to read an hour every day. By the 3rd week, life gets busy. You miss a few days, and suddenly the goal feels impossible. 2. You commit to reading just 1 page a day. It feels effortless. Some days you read just 1 page, other days you read 10. Over time, this simple habit grows, and by the end of the year, you've finished multiple books without even realizing it. This is the essence of the 1% rule. The idea that tiny, daily improvements create massive transformations over time. What to expect? Your roadmap to life transformation. This book isn't about making impossible commitments. It's about helping you make small, consistent changes that compound into extraordinary results. Over the next chapters, you'll learn how to apply the 1% rule to every aspect of life: health, career, mindset, relationships, and more. How to make change effortless and automatic by rewiring your brain for success. How to build momentum even when motivation fades. How to avoid common traps that cause people to quit before they see results. Each chapter is designed to be practical, engaging, and immediately useful. You'll hear real-life stories of people who transform their lives using small but powerful habits. You'll get strategies you can apply right away, no matter where you're starting from. Success isn't about sudden dramatic transformations. It's about showing up every day and getting just 1% better. By the time you finish this audiobook, you won't just understand the power of tiny wins, you'll be living them. Chapter 1: Why Big Changes Fail and Small Wins Succeed. The myth of overnight success. Think about the last time you set a big, ambitious goal. Maybe you wanted to lose weight, build a business, master a new skill, or completely transform your habits. You started with excitement, driven by a surge of motivation. You were ready to overhaul your life. And then reality hit. The workouts became exhausting. The diet felt unbearable. The early mornings were torture. The new habit felt unnatural and forced. Slowly, you started missing a day, then another. And before you knew it, you were back to square one. This is the cycle most people fall into, the all or nothing approach. The idea that change has to be dramatic, immediate, and overwhelming. It's the myth of overnight success. We see it everywhere. The entrepreneur who seemingly built $1 million company out of nowhere. The actor who suddenly made it big. The person who lost 50 pounds in a few months. But what we don't see is the years of quiet effort, the small decisions, the daily struggles. The truth is, success is never an overnight event. It's the result of tiny, consistent actions stacking up over time. Why big changes don't work. The human brain is designed for survival. It craves stability, routine, and familiarity. When we try to make massive changes all at once, our brain perceives it as a threat. It triggers resistance, making us feel uncomfortable, overwhelmed, and exhausted. This is why most diets fail. It's not because people lack willpower, it's because they try to change too much too quickly. It's why most New Year's resolutions don't last. The excitement fades, and the brain reverts to its comfort zone. Big, drastic changes create friction, and friction leads to failure. How small wins bypass resistance. Now imagine a different approach. Instead of forcing yourself to wake up at 5 a.m. to work out for an hour, you start by doing just one push-up every morning. That's it. One push-up. It feels effortless. Your brain doesn't resist it. It's too small to fail. A week later, you start doing 2 push-ups, then 5, then 10. Over time, this tiny habit becomes second nature. Eventually, you're exercising every day, but it never felt like a struggle. This is the power of small wins. When you focus on tiny improvements, your brain doesn't resist. The change feels natural. It becomes part of your identity without the struggle. The 1-degree shift, a simple but powerful analogy. Picture a plane taking off from Los Angeles, heading to New York. If the pilot adjusts the plane's course by just 1 degree, barely noticeable at takeoff, it won't land in New York. It will end up hundreds of miles away in a completely different city. 1 degree, a tiny shift. And yet, over time, that small change leads to an entirely different destination. This is exactly how small daily improvements work. At first, they seem insignificant. 1 extra glass of water, 1 extra page of a book, 1 small act of kindness. But as they compound over weeks, months, and years, they lead to massive transformations. Your life today is the result of the small choices you've made over time. And your future, it will be shaped by the tiny, consistent actions you choose, starting right now. The key takeaway: big changes don't last. Small changes do. The secret to transformation isn't about making huge, unsustainable efforts. It's about starting small and letting those small actions snowball into something extraordinary. The next chapter will show you exactly how to make these small wins a daily habit. Effortless, automatic, and life-changing. Chapter 2. The Science of Tiny Gains, the Hidden Power of Small Actions. Imagine you have 2 people standing at the bottom of a steep hill. One person decides to sprint to the top, pushing themselves with everything they have. The other person takes slow, steady steps, small but consistent. At first, the sprinter appears to be winning. They surge ahead with energy and determination, but soon they burn out, struggling to maintain their pace. Meanwhile, the second person keeps moving, step by step, without stopping. By the time the exhausted sprinter collapses halfway up, the steady climber has reached the top. This is how success really works. It's not about bursts of effort, it's about consistency, and science backs this up. Why small gains compound over time. There's a fascinating principle called the compound effect. It states that tiny, seemingly insignificant actions, when repeated consistently over time, create massive results. Think of a snowball rolling down a hill. At first, it's just a handful of snow, but as it keeps rolling, it picks up more snow, gaining speed and size. What started as a tiny ball becomes a powerful force. The same thing happens in life. Small habits, repeated daily, don't just add up, they multiply. Reading 1 page of a book each day might seem pointless, but over a year, that's 365 pages, more than enough to finish several books. Walking for just 10 minutes a day doesn't feel like much, but over a year, that's more than 60 hours of exercise. Saving just $5 a day seems insignificant, but over 5 years, it grows into thousands of dollars. The problem is, we don't see these tiny wins right away, and because we don't see immediate results, we assume they don't matter, but science shows they do. How small habits rewire the brain. Your brain is like a path in the forest. The more you walk a certain path, the clearer and more defined it becomes. This is how habits form. Inside your brain, neurons, tiny nerve cells, fire together when you perform an action. The more you repeat that action, the stronger the neural connection becomes. This is called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself. When you start a new habit, it feels unnatural because your brain is carving a new path. But with repetition, that path becomes automatic. This is why tiny habits work better than big ones. They bypass the brain's resistance and build momentum naturally. A case study: how 1% improvements built a winning team. One of the most powerful examples of the 1% rule in action comes from the world of sports. In 2003, the British cycling team was a disaster. They had almost no Olympic medals, and no British cyclist had ever won the Tour de France. Sponsors were embarrassed to be associated with them. Then a new coach, Dave Brailsford, was hired. His strategy? Marginal gains. Instead of overhauling everything, he focused on making tiny 1% improvements in every area. They adjusted bike seats for slightly better comfort. They switched to lighter, more aerodynamic tires. They improved sleep quality by bringing their own pillows to hotels. They taught riders the best way to wash their hands to avoid illness. Each change seemed minor, but together, these 1% improvements compounded. Within 5 years, the British cycling team dominated the Olympics, winning multiple gold medals. A few years later, British cyclists won the Tour de France 5 times in 6 years. Small, consistent improvements turned a failing team into a global powerhouse. The key takeaway: your brain, your body, and your life are shaped by what you do repeatedly. Tiny changes may not feel like they matter today, but they do. Small habits create momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates transformation. Your goal isn't to make huge, unsustainable changes. Your goal is to get 1% better every day. And when you do, you won't just change your habits, you'll change who you are. In the next chapter, we'll dive into exactly how to start applying the 1% rule in your daily life. Chapter 3: Mastering the Art of Micro Habits. The smallest change that makes the biggest difference. Picture this: you wake up early, determined to start a new fitness routine. You lace up your sneakers, throw on your workout clothes, and push yourself through an intense hour-long workout. It feels amazing, until the next morning when your entire body aches. You tell yourself you'll work out again tomorrow, but tomorrow turns into next week, then next month, and then nothing. This is what happens when we go big instead of starting small. Now imagine a different approach. Instead of committing to an hour-long workout, you do 1 push-up. Just 1. Then the next day you do 2. By the end of the month, you've built the habit without the overwhelm. This is the power of micro habits. They're so small that failure is impossible. And when something is easy to do, it's easy to keep doing. The difference between habits and micro habits. We often hear about the importance of habits: waking up early, exercising daily, reading more. But big habits can feel overwhelming, and when we struggle to maintain them, we assume we failed. Micro habits solve this problem. A habit is the big picture routine: running 3 miles every morning, reading 30 minutes a day, meditating for 15 minutes. A micro habit is the tiniest possible version of that habit: putting on your running shoes, reading 1 sentence, taking a single deep breath. The trick: micro habits don't stay small. Over time, they grow. Imagine a tiny seed. Alone, it's almost invisible, but given enough time, it transforms into a towering tree. Micro habits work the same way. How to design habits so small, they're impossible to fail. So how do you apply this in real life? Simple. 1. Start ridiculously small. Make your new habit so easy that it feels silly not to do it. Want to build a reading habit? Read 1 sentence a day. Want to start working out? Do 1 squat. Want to drink more water? Take 1 sip. These tiny actions may seem too small to matter, but that's the point. They remove resistance. 2. Anchor it to something you already do. Link your new micro habit to an existing habit. This is called habit stacking. After I brush my teeth, I'll do 1 push-up. After I drink my morning coffee, I'll read 1 sentence. After I put on my shoes, I'll take 1 deep breath. By attaching a new habit to something familiar, you make it automatic. Now 3. Celebrate immediately. Your brain loves rewards. When you feel good after completing an action, you're more likely to repeat it. Say yes after finishing your micro habit. Smile, fist pump, do a little happy dance. It might feel silly, but your brain will start associating the habit with pleasure. And when something feels good, you want to do it again. The 30-second exercise. Apply the 1% rule right now. Let's put this into action right now. Step 1. Think of one habit you've struggled to build. Step 2, shrink it down into the absolute smallest version. Step 3, tie it to something you already do. Step 4, do it right now. If your goal is to drink more water, take 1 sip. If you want to write more, type 1 word. If you want to exercise, do 1 stretch. That's it. You just took the first step. Tomorrow, do it again, then again, and soon it won't be 1 sip, it'll be an entire glass. It won't be 1 squat, it'll be a full workout. This is how micro habits work. This is how the 1% rule changes everything. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to make these micro habits stick, even when life gets busy. Chapter 4, the hidden power of tracking progress. Why what gets measured gets improved. Imagine 2 people trying to lose weight. The first person decides to eat healthier and exercise more. No plan, no tracking, just vague intentions. A month later, they feel frustrated. They think they made better choices, but there's no proof. The scale hasn't moved much and they lose motivation. The second person tracks their progress. Every day, they check off 1 small action, whether it's drinking more water, walking 10 minutes, or eating 1 extra vegetable. They see tangible proof that they're improving. And even when the results aren't dramatic, the tiny wins keep them going. This is the power of tracking. What gets measured gets improved. Peter Drucker. When you track progress, you make success visible. You shift from guessing to knowing. And most importantly, you stay motivated, even when results are slow. How small wins build self-confidence and motivation. Success isn't about giant leaps. It's about stacking tiny wins. Think of a video game. Each time you level up, your brain releases a small burst of dopamine, the feel-good chemical that keeps you playing. Tracking progress creates the same effect. Every check mark, every number that goes up, every streak you maintain, it all triggers dopamine, making you want to keep going. Ran for 5 minutes today? Wrote 1 sentence? Tiny win. Chose water over soda? Tiny win. Each small success rewires your brain for confidence. Instead of saying, I'll never get there, you start thinking, I'm making progress. Unique methods of tracking progress beyond boring checklists. Tracking doesn't have to be dull. Forget basic to-do lists. Here are creative ways to make progress visible. To 1, the Seinfeld strategy. Don't break the chain. Comedian Jerry Seinfeld used this simple method to write jokes daily. He put a big red X on a calendar every day he wrote. Soon, a chain formed and his only goal was to not break it. How to use it. Print a blank calendar or use a habit tracking app. Every day you complete your small habit, mark an X. Watch the chain grow and don't break it. 2, the jar of wins. Every time you make progress, write it on a small piece of paper and drop it into a jar. How to use it. Lost a pound? Write it down. Finished a book? Write it down. Had a great workout? Write it down. Whenever you feel discouraged, pull out a note and remind yourself how far you've come. The penny method. Start with a jar full of 100 pennies. Every time you take action toward your goal, move 1 penny to a second jar. How to use it. 1 penny equals 1 workout. 1 penny equals 1 healthy meal. 1 penny equals 10 minutes of learning. Your goal? Move all the pennies. The visual progress keeps you motivated. #4, the before and after notebook. Most changes happen too slowly to notice day by day. That's why tracking progress over time is powerful. How to use it. Take a photo, journal entry, or voice note of where you are today. Repeat once a week. Compare the before and after version of yourself in 30 days. You'll realize that even when progress feels invisible, it's happening. Make it fun, make it visible, make it work. Tracking progress is not about perfection. It's about momentum. Even if you miss a day, keep going. What matters is the overall trend, not a single slip-up. The more fun and creative you make tracking, the more motivated you'll be. In the next chapter, we'll tackle the biggest challenge of all, how to stay consistent, even when life gets in the way. Chapter 5, beating resistance and staying consistent. Why we struggle to stay consistent. Picture this. You're excited to start a new habit, maybe exercising, writing, or eating healthier. The first few days, motivation is high. You feel unstoppable. Then life happens. You wake up tired. A stressful day drains your energy. You miss a day, then 2, and before you know it, your habit is gone. Why? Because resistance always shows up. Resistance is the invisible force that makes simple tasks feel impossible. It's the voice in your head whispering, "You can start tomorrow. One day off won't hurt. You don't feel like it today." But here's the truth. Success isn't about motivation. It's about making progress even when you don't feel like it. The biggest obstacles to daily improvement and how to overcome them. 1. I don't have time. Shrink the action. One of the biggest excuses for inconsistency is lack of time. But in reality, the problem isn't time. It's that we set the bar too high. We think a workout needs to be an hour. Writing needs to be a full chapter. Learning needs to be a deep study session. Instead, shrink the action. Too busy to exercise? Do one push-up. No time to read? Read one sentence. Too tired to write? Write one word. It sounds silly, but once you start, momentum kicks in. That one push-up often turns into 10, turns into a paragraph. Success isn't about doing a lot. It's about showing up daily, no matter how small. 2. I keep forgetting. Use triggers and cues. We forget new habits because they have no anchor in our routine. The key? Attach them to something you already do. How to do it. After brushing your teeth, do one deep breath, habit stacking. Before your morning coffee, write one sentence, habit cue. Put your running shoes next to your bed so you see them first thing, visual trigger. When your habit has a trigger, it becomes automatic, just like brushing your teeth. 3. I don't feel like it. Use the 2-minute rule. Some days, you just don't have the energy. On those days, use the 2-minute rule. Commit to just 2 minutes of the habit. Instead of "I have to go for a run," I'll put on my shoes and step outside. Instead of "I have to read 10 pages," I'll open the book and read one sentence. Starting is the hardest part. Once you begin, you'll usually keep going. How to stay consistent even when life gets chaotic. Life is unpredictable. You won't always be in control of your schedule, but you can control how you adapt. 1. Plan for the worst. Ask yourself, what's the smallest version of my habit I can do on my busiest days? If I miss a day, what's my plan to get back on track? If your goal is to work out, your backup plan might be 10 squats before bed. If you're building a writing habit, it might be writing one word. Always have a minimum baseline, something so small it's impossible to fail. 2. Never miss twice. Missing one day won't ruin your progress. Missing 2 days starts a new habit, the habit of quitting. The rule: if you miss one day, make sure you show up the next day, even if it's just for 2 minutes. 3. Track your streak, but focus on the trend. Tracking progress builds momentum, but don't obsess over perfection. A missed day doesn't mean failure. Focus on the trend rather than individual slip-ups. As long as you're improving over time, you're winning. The psychology of momentum: how to restart after setbacks without guilt. We all fall off track. What matters is how quickly we recover. Most people quit because they feel guilty. They think, "I ruined my streak. What's the point? I failed again. I'll never be consistent." But a setback is just a pause, not a stop. Instead of guilt, use this mindset: I'm not starting over. I'm just continuing. Every time you restart, you prove that failure isn't the end. It's just part of the process. Your new rule: progress, not perfection. Staying consistent isn't about willpower or motivation. It's about having a system that makes it easy to show up daily. Shrink the action. Use triggers and cues. Plan for the worst. Never miss twice. Restart without guilt. In the next chapter, we'll dive into how to apply these strategies to every area of life: health, career, relationships, and more. Chapter 6, Health and Fitness, the 1% approach to a stronger body. Why crash diets and extreme workouts fail. Every January, millions of people set ambitious fitness goals. They vow to hit the gym daily, cut out sugar completely, or lose 20 pounds in a month. The first few days are full of enthusiasm, but by February, most have given up. Why? Because big, drastic changes are unsustainable. Here's what typically happens. You start an extreme diet, cutting out all your favorite foods. At first, it works, but soon, cravings kick in, and one cheat meal turns into a binge. You commit to working out for an hour every day, but after a week, Soreness, exhaustion, and a busy schedule make you skip a day. Then two, then you quit altogether. You try to overhaul your lifestyle overnight, but life gets in the way, and the pressure of maintaining such a drastic change becomes overwhelming. The problem isn't lack of discipline, it's the all or nothing mentality. Instead of trying to be perfect, what if you aim for just 1% better every day? How to improve fitness and nutrition with tiny, sustainable shifts. Real transformation doesn't come from extreme diets or grueling workouts. It comes from small, consistent improvements that compound over time. Here's how to apply the 1% rule to your health. 1. Move just a little more each day. Forget punishing workouts. Instead, focus on tiny increases in movement that feel effortless but add up over time. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Do 1 push-up before bed. Walk for just 5 minutes after lunch. Stretch for 30 seconds when you wake up. It seems too easy to matter, but these small movements create momentum. Over time, your body adjusts and movement becomes part of your routine. Top 2. Eat 1% healthier, not perfectly. Instead of cutting out all bad foods, focus on making tiny, manageable changes. Add 1 serving of vegetables to a meal. Swap 1 soda for water. Eat 1 bite less of junk food. Choose whole grains instead of refined ones. When you improve your diet by just 1% at a time, your taste buds and habits naturally adjust without feeling deprived. Build strength without overwhelm. Many people avoid strength training because it feels intimidating. But you don't need fancy equipment or intense gym sessions to build strength. Start with micro habits that feel too small to fail. Do 1 squat while brushing your teeth. Hold a plank for 5 seconds. Lift something heavy once. These micro strength habits rewire your brain to see yourself as someone who exercises, making it easier to build a lasting routine. The power of tiny gains, real-world transformations. Case study, the 1% approach in action. Meet James, a 45-year-old who wanted to lose weight and feel more energetic. He had tried strict diets and intense workout plans before, but they never lasted. This time, he did something different. Instead of overhauling his diet, he started by drinking 1 extra glass of water per day. Instead of forcing himself into hour-long workouts, he committed to 1-minute walks. Instead of banning sugar completely, he reduced 1 teaspoon from his coffee. The results? Within 6 months, these tiny habits had snowballed. He was walking 30 minutes daily without forcing himself. He naturally craved healthier foods. He lost 20 pounds not through suffering, but through effortless progress. Why this works? The 1% rule isn't about willpower. It's about making small changes so easy that you can't fail. When your habits feel effortless, they stick. Your new rule: do less but more consistently. Forget extreme diets. Make tiny improvements to your meals. Forget intense workouts. Move just 1% more each day. Forget all or nothing thinking. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. Over time, these micro changes compound into a healthier, stronger body without burnout. In the next chapter, we'll explore how the 1% rule can transform your career, helping you achieve success without feeling overwhelmed. Chapter 7: Money and Wealth. Small financial moves for big results. Most people believe financial success comes from big breaks, a lucky stock investment, a high-paying job, or an unexpected windfall. But true wealth isn't built overnight. It's crafted through small, daily financial habits that seem insignificant in the moment, but compound into massive results over time. Think of finances like a snowball rolling downhill. A tiny snowflake doesn't seem like much, but as it rolls, it gains momentum, grows bigger, and turns into an unstoppable force. The same happens with money when the 1% rule is applied. Tiny financial shifts that lead to long-term wealth. Saving $1 per day seems trivial, but in 10 years, that's $3,650, not including interest. Spending 1% less per month forces mindfulness, cutting waste without feeling deprived. Investing just $5 daily in a simple stock index fund can grow into 6 figures over time. By making money moves that feel effortless, strong financial habits are formed that last a lifetime. The psychology of spending and saving, how small changes rewire the brain. Money isn't just numbers, it's emotional. People don't overspend because they lack discipline. They do it because the brain is wired to seek immediate pleasure. Every purchase releases a tiny hit of dopamine, the brain's reward chemical. The more often this happens, the more spending becomes automatic. This is why mindless spending, grabbing a coffee, ordering takeout, impulse shopping feels so easy, while saving money feels like a chore. The key is to shift the dopamine response. Instead of feeling deprived when skipping a purchase, small wins need to be celebrated. Transferring $5 into savings? Reward it mentally. Cooking at home instead of ordering out? Recognize the win. Avoiding impulse shopping? Acknowledge the progress. Over time, these micro rewards rewire the brain to associate financial discipline with success and satisfaction. One powerful 1% financial habit that will change the relationship with money. Imagine a person who always struggled with money, living paycheck to paycheck despite earning a decent salary. The moment money hit the account, it was gone. Rent, bills, splurges, and by mid-month, stress and regret kicked in. The cycle repeated for years. Then, one day, a friend introduced the Shorthal 1% rule of wealth, a simple idea. Just save 1% of every dollar earned. At first, it felt meaningless. What was 1%? If they earned $2,000 a month, that was just $20. But the rule wasn't about the amount. It was about building momentum. 1% turned into 2, then 5, then 10. They started automating savings. They began paying attention to small leaks, subscriptions they didn't use, late fees, unnecessary upgrades. These tiny changes freed up more money, which went straight into investments. Years later, they looked at their bank account and saw something they never had before: financial security. The stress of living paycheck to paycheck was gone. The transformation wasn't overnight, but it was real. And it all started with 1%. Small changes don't just impact bank accounts, they transform mindsets. The 1% rule isn't just about saving money. It's about gaining control, breaking free from financial stress, and building lasting wealth, one tiny decision at a time. Chapter 8, Productivity Focus, the 1% Edge in Work and Creativity. In today's world, productivity is often mistaken for being busy. People jump from task to task, drown in endless notifications, and mistake exhaustion for efficiency. But true productivity isn't about doing more. It's about doing less but better. And the secret to mastering this isn't a complete life overhaul. It's the 1% rule in action. How small adjustments multiply productivity. Consider two professionals. One works 10-hour days, multitasking, responding to emails instantly, constantly switching between projects, and ending the day exhausted with little to show for it. The other works shorter hours but has small, optimized habits, focusing on deep work, limiting distractions, and improving efficiency by just 1% daily. Fast forward a year. The first is burned out, struggling to keep up. The second has skyrocketed in productivity, mastering their craft while maintaining balance. The difference? Tiny, consistent improvements in workflow. A 1% shift in daily work habits might seem trivial, but over time, these small optimizations create a compounding effect that leads to exponential gains in focus, efficiency, and creativity. The hidden 1% distractions that drain productivity. Most people don't lose hours in a day. They lose tiny minutes that silently drain energy and focus. Checking social media for just a second adds up to hours of lost time. Constantly switching between tasks reduces efficiency by 40% due to mental lag. Unnecessary meetings, emails, and notifications chip away at deep work without notice. To reclaim time, start by identifying the 1% leaks. Batch emails and messages instead of responding instantly. Eliminate the first 1% of distractions, phone notifications, cluttered workspaces, random browsing. Set focus sprints, dedicating small, undistracted time blocks to deep work. These micro adjustments don't seem drastic, but they stack up, leading to hours of reclaimed productivity each week. A game-changing technique to work smarter, not harder. One of the most powerful 1% productivity strategies is the 2-minute rule. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Responding to an email? Done. Filing a document? Done. Sending a quick follow-up? Done. Why does this work? Because tiny tasks accumulate. Procrastination on small things creates mental clutter, slowing down bigger projects. But knocking out micro tasks in the moment removes mental weight, keeping the mind sharp and focused. For longer tasks, the key is the 1% progress rule. Instead of waiting for the perfect time to work on something big, just commit to one tiny step daily. Writing a book? Just write one sentence. Learning a skill? Just practice for 1 minute. These small efforts trick the brain out of resistance, creating momentum that leads to bigger breakthroughs. Why the 1% rule transforms creativity? Not just productivity. Creativity isn't about waiting for inspiration. It's about building a system that invites inspiration in. 1% daily creativity habit. Instead of waiting for motivation, commit to just one small creative act daily. Writing one idea, sketching for a minute, brainstorming for 5 minutes. Over time, this compounds into creative mastery. Reducing creative friction. If setting up a workspace takes 10 minutes, creativity stalls before it starts. Small adjustments, like keeping tools ready, eliminating setup time, and automating repetitive tasks, keep the creative flow effortless. The secret to high performance isn't radical change. It's tiny, strategic shifts that over time lead to extraordinary results. 1% better every day doesn't feel like much, but in a year, it leads to transformation. That's the power of the 1% productivity edge, not working harder, but working smarter with less effort and more impact. Chapter 9, Relationships and Social Life, How Small Gestures Build Strong Bonds. Relationships are not built in a day. They are built every day. The strongest friendships, marriages, and social networks don't thrive on big, grand gestures, but on small, consistent acts of care. A one-time romantic getaway or a lavish gift can be memorable, but it's the small daily moments that truly strengthen relationships over time. The 1% rule in relationships proves that tiny intentional actions, a kind word, a thoughtful gesture, a moment of active listening, compound over time into deep, unbreakable bonds. Why relationships thrive on consistency, not grand gestures. Consider two couples. Couple A goes through cycles of neglect and then dramatic attempts to fix things, expensive vacations, grand apologies, occasional bursts of affection. Couple B focuses on small, daily efforts, a quick text to check in, a shared laugh over coffee, a moment of undivided attention. A year later, Couple B feels more connected than ever, while Couple A feels exhausted, wondering why things aren't improving despite their big efforts. The truth is, relationships function like emotional bank accounts. You can't wait until the balance is low and then try to deposit everything at once. The key is small, frequent deposits, tiny moments of love, trust, and appreciation that build over time. The 1% rule for deepening friendships, strengthening marriages, and building networks. Friendships. Relationships fade, not because of major fights, but because of small neglects, forgotten birthdays, unanswered messages, or always being too busy. A 1% habit like sending a quick check-in message, sharing a funny memory, or making time for a short chat keeps friendships alive and thriving. Marriages and romantic relationships. A single grand romantic gesture can't compensate for daily emotional distance, but a daily act of love, a compliment, a touch, an inside joke, strengthens intimacy over time. Professional and social networks. Most people only reach out when they need something, which weakens relationships. Instead, small, regular interactions, a message of appreciation, a shared opportunity, a casual conversation, build strong, lasting connections that make networking effortless. The secret? Small moments of connection are more powerful than rare, dramatic acts of affection. #interactive challenge, a small daily action to improve any relationship in 7 days. Want to see the 1% rule in action? Try this 7-day relationship challenge, where one tiny act per day will dramatically strengthen a relationship in your life. Day 1, send a thoughtful message, text, voice note, or email to someone you appreciate. Make it personal. Mention a memory or something specific you love about them. Day 2, listen without distractions. During your next conversation, put away your phone, make eye contact, and truly engage. Day 3, give an unexpected small compliment, something genuine and specific about their personality, work, or presence. Day 4, do a tiny act of service, make someone's coffee, help with a task, or ease their burden in some small way. Day 5, share a positive memory, bring up a moment you cherish together. Day 6, be the first to reach out, Call, text, or invite someone to do something. Day 7. End the day by expressing gratitude. Tell someone why you appreciate them in a direct and heartfelt way. By the end of 7 days, you'll feel a noticeable difference. The relationship will feel warmer, more connected, and stronger, all from tiny, effortless acts of care. This is the 1% rule in relationships, small daily efforts that compound into deep, lasting bonds over time. No grand gestures needed, just consistency and kindness and connection. Chapter 10. The 1% rule for emotional resilience and mental strength. Life's challenges can feel overwhelming. Stress, failure, and uncertainty can make it seem like mental strength is something only a few people are born with. But in reality, resilience is built one small step at a time. The 1% rule for emotional resilience teaches us that small, daily shifts in thought patterns can rewire the brain for greater strength, positivity, and adaptability. Just like building physical muscle, mental strength is developed through tiny, consistent actions, not sudden dramatic breakthroughs. How small shifts in thought patterns rewire your brain for positivity and resilience. Your brain is like a garden. Whatever you plant and nurture grows. If you constantly feed it negativity, self-doubt, and fear, those thoughts will take root and dominate your mindset. But if you make small, intentional efforts to shift your focus toward gratitude, problem-solving, and optimism, you will gradually retrain your mind to be stronger and more resilient. 1% shift to number 1, reframing negative thoughts. Instead of "I failed," think "I learned something valuable." Instead of "this is too hard," think "I am growing stronger." Over time, these small changes rewire your response to challenges. 1% shift number 2, daily micro-gratitude. Take 30 seconds each day to note one small thing that went well. Tiny moments of appreciation add up to a more positive outlook over time. 1%. Shift number 3, the 5-second pause. Before reacting emotionally to stress or frustration, pause for 5 seconds and ask, "What's one small way I can handle this better?" These brief pauses train your brain to respond with clarity instead of impulse. The 1% rule for handling stress, setbacks, and negativity. When stress hits, most people either get overwhelmed or try to push through aggressively, both of which lead to burnout. But resilient people don't rely on willpower alone. Instead, they use small, consistent strategies to navigate difficulties without exhausting themselves. Stress reduction in tiny doses. A 60-second deep breath, a quick walk, or a short laugh releases tension and prevents stress from accumulating. Tiny resets throughout the day keep your mind clear. Micro wins for setbacks. After failure, focus on the smallest next step rather than the entire problem. This keeps you moving forward instead of getting stuck in disappointment. Detoxing negativity 1% at a time. Reduce exposure to toxic news, draining conversations, or self-criticism by just 1% a day. A small shift in mental environment makes a big difference over time. An exercise to train your brain for daily optimism. Try this simple yet powerful 3-minute mental exercise to increase positivity and resilience. Step 1. Recall a moment of progress, big or small, from today, something that went even slightly right. Step 2. Identify one tiny lesson or strength you gained from the day, no matter how small. Step 3. Set a 1% improvement goal for tomorrow, a micro action that builds on today's progress. By repeating this exercise daily, you train your mind to recognize growth, embrace small wins, and cultivate resilience without forcing toxic positivity. Resilience is built 1% at a time. You don't have to become emotionally strong overnight. You just need to improve by 1% each day. A small shift in thought patterns, a minor change in stress management, a tiny daily habit of optimism. These micro adjustments compound into unshakable mental strength over time. That's the power of the 1% rule for emotional resilience. It transforms how you handle challenges, how you see setbacks, and how you build a mind that thrives, no matter what life throws your way. Chapter 11. Overcoming plateaus. What to do when progress stalls. Progress feels exciting until it suddenly doesn't. You start making small, steady improvements, and then one day, nothing seems to change. The weight on the scale won't budge. Your savings account stops growing as fast. Your creative breakthroughs dry up. Welcome to the plateau, the point where most people give up. But what if plateaus weren't signs of failure, but signs of hidden progress? What if the key to success wasn't pushing harder, but making micro adjustments that reignite momentum? This chapter will show you why plateaus happen, how to break through them, and how the 1% rule keeps you moving forward, even when it feels like nothing is working. Why everyone experiences plateaus, and how to break through them. Imagine a block of ice sitting in a room at 28 degrees Celsius. No matter how long you stare at it, nothing happens. You turn up the temperature to 29 degrees Fahrenheit, then 30 degrees Fahrenheit, then 31 degrees Fahrenheit. Still nothing changes. Then, at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the ice begins to melt. The truth is, the energy added at 28 degrees, 21, and 31 degrees Fahrenheit wasn't wasted. Every tiny increase brought the ice closer to the breakthrough moment. You just couldn't see it. Plateaus in life work the same way. You've been eating healthier, but the scale won't move. You've been working on your business, but profits aren't growing. You've been writing daily, but no breakthrough ideas are coming. In these moments, most people get discouraged and quit right before the 32 degrees moment. Instead, the 1% rule teaches us to trust the process, make micro adjustments, and stay consistent, because hidden progress is happening beneath the surface. The role of patience and micro adjustments in sustaining long-term growth. When progress stalls, most people assume one of two things. One, I need to do something drastic. They overhaul their plan, which often leads to burnout. Two, this isn't working. I should quit. They stop altogether, giving up just before the breakthrough. But the real key to overcoming plateaus isn't massive changes. It's small, strategic tweaks. Here's how to do it. Dash to 1% strategy number 1. Micro tweaks for renewed growth. Instead of overhauling everything, make tiny, data-driven adjustments. Health and fitness. If weight loss has stalled, don't starve yourself. Try adjusting your meals by 100 calories or adding 5 minutes of movement each day. Finances. If your savings aren't growing, review your expenses and find one small area where you can save an extra 1%. Productivity. If your work feels stagnant, adjust your routine by 15 minutes or change your environment slightly, like working in a different space. Tiny adjustments, not drastic changes, restart progress. 1% strategy 2, the plateau perspective shift. Instead of seeing plateaus as failures, recognize them as signs of adaptation. Your body, brain, or habits are adjusting to a new level, which means you're actually making progress. Ask yourself, what has improved, even if it's not my main goal? Example, maybe you haven't lost weight, but your energy is higher. What's the next tiniest step I can take? Example, if writing feels stagnant, try writing one sentence differently. Micro adjustments compound. The breakthrough always comes just after most people quit. A real-life example, James Clear's 1% breakthrough. Before James Clear became the best-selling author of Atomic Habits, he was stuck in a writing plateau. He published articles consistently, but his readership wasn't growing. For months, it felt like he was writing into the void. Instead of quitting, he stayed consistent and made small adjustments. He improved his headlines by 1% each time. He adjusted his writing schedule by small increments. He refined his calls to action, tweaking a few words at a time. Then, after months of no visible change, his audience exploded. One of his articles went viral, and within a year, he had over 1 million readers. The tiny improvements that seemed invisible had been compounding all along. The 1% rule, trust the process and stay the course. A plateau doesn't mean you're stuck. It means you're in the 31-degree phase, right before your next breakthrough. Instead of quitting or making extreme changes, trust that your small, black daily improvements are accumulating beneath the surface. Adjust, but don't overhaul. Measure progress in micro wins, not just big results. Keep going, because the breakthrough always comes right after the plateau. That's the power of the 1% rule. Progress may feel slow, but it never stops. And when the breakthrough happens, it will feel like an overnight success, except you'll know better. Chapter 12, The Ripple Effect, How Small Wins Change Everything. Small actions rarely stay small. A single 1% improvement in one area of life often triggers unexpected positive changes elsewhere, like ripples spreading across a pond. A person who starts exercising for just 5 minutes a day suddenly finds themselves eating healthier, sleeping better, and feeling more confident. Someone who commits to reading 1 page per night eventually discovers they are thinking differently, making better decisions, and having more meaningful conversations. A professional who improves their focus by eliminating just 1 distraction daily ends up getting a promotion, earning more, and finding more time for family. This chapter explores how one small change leads to another, creating a domino effect that transforms entire lives. The domino effect, how improving 1% in one area affects everything. Imagine a line of dominoes, each slightly larger than the last. If you tip over a tiny 1-inch domino, it has enough force to knock over a domino 50% bigger. If the pattern continues, by the 29th domino, you'd be toppling one the size of the Empire State Building. This is how the 1% rule works in real life. When you improve just one small area, it sets off a chain reaction. A small fitness habit, more energy, better productivity at work, more income, less stress at home. Decluttering one's space, a clearer mind, better decision-making, more confidence to pursue bigger goals. Writing just 50 words daily, finishing a book, launching a career, inspiring thousands. The key is to start small and stay consistent, because every 1% improvement adds up to something greater than expected. Stories of unexpected transformations sparked by tiny changes. The 5-minute journal that changed a career. Sarah, an overwhelmed corporate employee, decided to start journaling for just 5 minutes every morning. She didn't expect much, just a way to clear her thoughts. Over time, this tiny habit changed everything. She became more self-aware, noticing patterns in her stress levels. She started setting small daily goals, leading to greater focus at work. She gained the confidence to ask for a raise and got it. What started as a simple journaling habit led to financial growth, better work-life balance, and greater happiness. 2. The 1-minute gratitude practice that saved a marriage. John and Lisa's marriage was on the rocks. They barely spoke, constantly argued, and felt disconnected. Instead of trying to fix everything at once, John decided to focus on just one small habit. Every day he would say one thing he appreciated about Lisa, out loud. At first it felt awkward, but within weeks, Lisa started responding in kind. Their conversations became warmer, their arguments became less frequent, their relationship slowly healed. A 1-minute daily habit rebuilt a connection that years of big efforts couldn't. The 1% investment that led to financial freedom. Michael, a struggling freelancer, wanted to improve his finances. Instead of making drastic changes, he focused on saving just 1% of every paycheck. It seemed like nothing at first, but as he stuck with it, he learned to budget smarter. His small savings grew into an investment fund. Within 3 years, he had enough money to quit his job and start his dream business. What seemed like an insignificant habit completely transformed his financial future. A final push. Commit to the 1% rule for life. Small habits shape your identity. Each time you improve by 1%, you reinforce the belief that you are becoming better. When you exercise for 2 minutes, you become someone who values health. When you write 1 sentence, you become a writer. When you save $1, you become financially responsible. The 1% rule isn't about perfection or instant results. It's about momentum. One tiny step today leads to massive transformation tomorrow. The question is, what small action will you take today that your future self will thank you for? Conclusion, your 1% commitment starts now. Small changes create big transformations, but only if you start. Right now, you stand at a crossroads. You've seen how tiny, consistent actions can reshape your health, career, relationships, mindset, and future. You've learned that massive success isn't built on overnight transformations, but on daily, almost invisible wins. But knowledge alone is not. Action is what creates results. Your challenge, take one tiny step today. The 1% rule only works if you apply it. Not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. So here's your final challenge. Choose one micro action and commit to it today. Want to be healthier? Drink one extra glass of water. Want to be wealthier? Save one extra dollar. Want to be happier? Write down one thing you're grateful for. Want to improve a relationship? Send one kind message. Whatever your goal, start ridiculously small, because today's 1% effort is the foundation of your future success. The lasting impact of small wins. Imagine yourself 1 year from now. If you improve just 1% each day, you won't be 365% better. You'll be 37 times better. If you invest in just one small habit, it will create a ripple effect across every area of your life. If you stay consistent, even when it feels insignificant, you'll look back and realize the life you once dreamed of is the life you are now living. This isn't about motivation, it's about momentum. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. The only thing left to do? Start.